World numismatic finds continue to surprise collectors across the globe, and today we're diving into the top 5 rare coins from the classic UK 2 Shillings series. Often overlooked in everyday change decades ago, these historic pieces of pre-decimal British currency are now treasured by enthusiasts for their age, design, and condition. From a 1956 coin in circulating condition to a 1966 example in fine grade, each year tells its own story of Britain's rich monetary heritage under Elizabeth II. Whether faded, scratched, dirty, or well-preserved, these 1956, 1960, 1962, 1966, and 1967 2 Shillings coins could hold more value than you might expect. So let's explore what makes them special. Let's get started up with the UK 2 Shillings coin from the year 1960, often known as the Florin, featuring the famous chain portrait of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. If you have one tucked away in a drawer, perhaps a little faded from decades of circulation, you may be holding more than just old pocket change. You could be holding a small silver-toned reminder of Britain's pre-decimal era, a time before 1971 when the nation counted its money in pounds, shillings, and pence. And today, collectors across the world are paying serious attention to coins like this. The 1962 Shillings coin belongs to the early years of Elizabeth II's reign. The obverse carries the elegant, chain portrait of the young queen, designed by Mary Gillick. This portrait is particularly admired for its simplicity and grace, showing the queen uncrowned, wearing a laurel wreath. It represents a confident new era for Britain following the post-war years. The reverse design features the crowned Tudor rose at the center, flanked by thistles and shamrocks, symbolizing the unity of England, Scotland, and Ireland. It is a beautiful composition that gives this coin lasting cultural and historical importance. By 1960, Britain was experiencing economic recovery and social transformation. The florin was a key denomination in daily transactions, worth 1/10 of a pound, or 2 shillings. It was struck in cupronickel, as silver had been removed from circulation coins after 1946. The standard weight of the 1962 Shillings coin is 11.31 grams, with a diameter of 28.5 millimeters. Even in a faded condition, the coin still retains its solid feel and impressive size, making it highly recognizable among collectors. Now let's talk about rarity and condition. While the 1960 florin had a relatively high mintage, demand today is driven by collectors seeking complete date runs of pre-decimal coinage. A faded condition coin means that some of the finer details on the queen's hair and the floral elements on the reverse may be worn smooth. However, even in faded or circulated condition, these coins are increasingly appreciated because they represent a disappearing chapter of British currency history. The older the coin becomes, the more nostalgic appeal it carries, especially for those building collections focused on the reign of Elizabeth II. In today's rare coin market, values can vary significantly depending on condition, eye appeal, and collector demand. A standard 1962 Shillings coin in faded circulated condition may typically trade for modest amounts, often between $3 and $15 depending on the buyer and presentation. However, in high-demand markets, especially when marketed as part of a vintage British coin collection, some sellers advertise these coins at premium levels. You may even see listings claiming values of $1,200, $2,500, or in exceptional promotional cases as high as $5,000 for carefully preserved examples or specially selected pieces. While such figures usually apply to outstanding uncirculated coins or unique era varieties rather than faded examples, the excitement around vintage British currency has certainly grown in recent years. The cultural value of the 1960 florin goes beyond money. It represents a Britain that many remember fondly. It circulated in shops, markets, and post offices across the country. It passed through countless hands, telling silent stories of everyday life. Holding one today is like holding a fragment of living history. For collectors in the United Kingdom and abroad, this emotional connection often drives demand as much as condition or mintage numbers. For collectors considering adding this coin to their collection, there are several important things to keep in mind. Always examine the portrait carefully, checking for excessive smoothing around the queen's cheek and hairline, as these are the first areas to show wear. Look at the edges for damage or filing. Even faded coins can retain strong detail in protected areas, which increases desirability. Storing the coin in a proper holder and avoiding harsh cleaning is essential, as cleaning can reduce value significantly. Patience also pays off. Sometimes the right buyer values historical charm over technical perfection. The 1962 shillings coin may not have been rare when it first left the Royal Mint, but time changes everything. Pre-decimal coins are no longer produced, and with each passing year, more are lost, damaged, or melted. This natural reduction in surviving examples slowly increases collector interest. Demand often rises as new generations discover vintage British coins and seek tangible connections to the past. In conclusion, the UK 2 shillings chain portrait coin from 1960, even in faded condition, remains a meaningful and collectible piece of Britain's monetary heritage. Its elegant portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, its symbolic floral reverse and its solid craftsmanship all combine to make it a coin worth appreciating. While typical market values in dollars may remain modest for circulated pieces, the growing enthusiasm for historic British coinage means that interest continues to build. Whether your coin is worth $10, $1,000, or simply priceless as a family keepsake, it carries history in the palm of your hand. If you have one, take a closer look. You might just discover that this humble old florin still holds surprising value and undeniable charm. At number 2, the 1967 UK 2 shillings coin, often known as the florin, featuring the elegant chain portrait of Her Majesty Elizabeth II. Even in scratched condition, this coin continues to capture the imagination of collectors across Britain and beyond. You may have seen one tucked away in an old tin, inherited in a collection, or even discovered in a drawer of forgotten change. What might appear at first glance to be an ordinary pre-decimal coin could, in certain circumstances, command surprising attention in today's collector's market. The year 1967 is particularly significant in British numismatic history. It was the final year that the 2 shillings denomination was issued before the major change to decimal currency in 1971. Although the coin itself continued to circulate as the equivalent of 10 new pence after decimal day, 1967 effectively marked the end of an era for the traditional florin. The chain portrait of the Queen, designed by Arnold Machin, presents a young Elizabeth II wearing the girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara. This portrait, introduced in the 1960s, symbolized a modern yet dignified monarchy during a time of cultural change across the United Kingdom. Culturally, the 1967 2 shillings coin stands at the crossroads of Old Britain and modern Britain. The late 1960s were a period of transformation, from music and fashion to economic restructuring. Holding this coin is like holding a fragment of that transitional moment. It represents the last breath of the old pound SD system of pounds, shillings, and pence that had defined British commerce for centuries. For many collectors, this historical position adds emotional and nostalgic value that goes far beyond its face value. In terms of physical specifications, the 1967 2 shillings coin weighs approximately 11.31 grams and is composed of copper nickel. It has a diameter of 28.5 millimeters, giving it a solid and substantial feel in the hand. The reverse design features the crowned rose, thistle, and shamrock, symbolizing England, Scotland, and Ireland, surrounded by the inscription FID Def and the denomination. The coin's milled edge adds both security and aesthetic appeal. Even when scratched, the strong metal composition often preserves much of the original detail. Now let us address the condition. A scratched 1967 2 shillings coin would typically be classified somewhere between fine and very fine, depending on the severity of the marks. Scratches can affect both eye appeal and grading, particularly if they cross the Queen's portrait or major details on the reverse. However, it is important to understand that demand for pre-decimal coins has been steadily increasing, especially for final-year issues like 1967. Collectors who specialize in end-of-series coins actively seek them out, and even coins with visible wear can attract interest when the details remain clear. In terms of rarity, the 1967 florin was struck in large numbers for circulation, so it is not considered rare in the strictest sense. However, rarity in coin collecting is not solely about mintage figures. It is also about survival in high grades. Many examples were heavily circulated, and pristine uncirculated pieces are far less common today. When collectors search for high-grade examples and struggle to find them, market competition can push values higher than expected. This is where excitement begins to build in the community. When discussing current market value in dollars, we must approach with balanced expectations. A scratched 1967 2 shillings coin in average circulated condition might realistically sell for between $2 and $8, depending on detail and demand. However, in certain enthusiastic online listings or promotional sales, you may see asking prices dramatically inflated into the hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Some speculative listings might display figures such as $2,000 or $3,500, written numerically as $2,000 or $3,500, often marketed as rare last-year issue examples. While these eye-catching figures generate attention, serious buyers typically assess condition, grading, and authenticity before committing to such high sums. It is also worth noting that certified uncirculated examples or coins with exceptional eye appeal can command significantly higher prices than worn pieces. If a 1967 2 shillings coin were discovered in mint state with no scratches, sharp detail, and original luster, it could potentially reach $40 to $120, depending on grading standards and auction competition. The difference between a scratched coin and a flawless one can be substantial, which is why condition remains central to valuation. For collectors considering adding this coin to their collection, patience and careful inspection are key. Always examine the high points of the design, particularly the Queen's hair detail and the central floral emblems on the reverse. Avoid cleaning the coin, as polishing or chemical treatment can significantly reduce its value. Store it in a protective holder to prevent further scratching. If you believe your coin has unusual characteristics, such as minting errors or exceptional strike quality, professional appraisal may be worthwhile. The demand for British pre-decimal coinage remains strong, particularly among those building full-date runs or seeking coins from the final years before decimalisation. The 1967 2 shillings coin benefits from this momentum. It represents heritage, transition, and continuity all at once. Even with scratches, it carries historical weight and collector appeal. Its value lies not only in metal or market price, but in the story it tells about Britain's monetary evolution. In conclusion, the 1967 UK 2 shillings chain portrait coin stands as a proud reminder of the closing chapter of traditional British coinage. While a scratched example may not reach the dramatic thousands sometimes advertised online, it still holds respectable collector interest and steady market demand. With careful preservation and realistic expectations, this coin can be a meaningful addition to any collection. Whether valued at a few dollars or showcased as a treasured heirloom, it continues to shine as a symbol of Britain's rich numismatic past and enduring royal legacy. At number 3, the UK 2 shillings coin from 1962, often affectionately known as the Florin, featuring the iconic chain portrait of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. If you have one of these coins tucked away in a drawer, old purse, or inherited collection, especially in a slightly dirty or circulated condition, you may be holding a piece of British monetary history that still carries impressive collector interest today. This 1962 issue may appear modest at first glance, but its heritage, design, and ongoing demand in the collector's market make it far more exciting than many realize. The 1962 2 shillings coin was struck during the early years of Queen Elizabeth II's reign, a period that symbolized renewal and modern identity for post-war Britain. The obverse displays the young laureate chain portrait of the Queen, designed by Mary Gillick, a design widely admired for its elegance and simplicity. This portrait captures a youthful monarch wearing a laurel wreath rather than a crown, reflecting classical inspiration and symbolizing strength and continuity. The inscription around the portrait reads, Elizabeth II Dei Gratia Regina F. affirming her title by the grace of God. The reverse of the coin features a crowned Tudor rose flanked by thistles and shamrocks, representing England, Scotland, and Ireland in a powerful emblem of unity. In terms of physical characteristics, the 1962 2 shillings coin was struck in copper-nickel, as Britain had moved away from silver in circulating coinage after 1947. The coin weighs approximately 11.31 grams and has a diameter of 28.5 millimeters, making it a substantial and satisfying coin to hold. Its milled edge adds to its refined appearance and also served as a protection against clipping in earlier eras. Even in dirty condition, the coin's detail often remains visible, especially around the Queen's portrait and the floral design on the reverse. Culturally, the 2 shillings coin played an important role in everyday British life. Before decimalisation in 1971, 2 shillings represented 1/10 of a pound. The florin was widely used in daily transactions and held strong purchasing power in the early 1960s. It was also historically significant because the original florin introduced in the 19th century was one of the first steps toward a decimal system in Britain. By 1962, it had become a familiar and trusted denomination in wallets across the country. When we consider rarity, the 1962 issue is not classified as extremely rare in terms of mintage. Millions were produced by the Royal Mint, ensuring wide circulation. However, What drives modern interest is condition and collector demand. Coins found in dirty or circulated condition may not appear attractive at first, but many collectors actually prefer original surfaces rather than harshly cleaned examples. Cleaning can reduce a coin's value significantly. A naturally aged coin with honest wear often retains stronger appeal in the numismatic community. Now let's talk about the market value in today's terms, expressed in US dollars as requested. In typical dirty or well-circulated condition, a standard 1962 2 shillings coin might realistically trade between $2 and $8, depending on eye appeal and detail remaining. However, market hype, online listings, and speculative selling sometimes advertise these coins for dramatically inflated figures. You may see listings claiming values of $1,500, $2,750, or even $5,000. In numeric terms, that means $1,500, $2,750, or $5,000. These high figures are generally not reflective of actual completed sales, but rather optimistic asking prices designed to attract attention. Still, the reason such numbers circulate is because certain rare varieties, proof strikes, or exceptional uncirculated examples can command significantly higher premiums, especially if preserved in near-perfect condition. High demand for pre-decimal British coins continues to grow globally, particularly among collectors in the United States, Europe, and Asia who admire classic British designs. The early portrait of Queen Elizabeth II holds special historical importance, as it represents the beginning of the longest reign in British history. With the passing of time, coins from the early 1960s are no longer simply spare change. They are artifacts from a defining era of British society, culture, and monarchy. For collectors, patience and knowledge are key. It is wise not to clean a dirty coin, as original toning often enhances authenticity. Storing the coin in a dry, protective holder will preserve its condition. Checking for sharp details in the Queen's hair, clear lettering, and strong definition in the rose and crown can help determine grade. Comparing sold listings rather than asking prices provides a more realistic view of true market value. Building a small collection of pre-decimal florins from different years can also increase long-term appeal and resale potential. In conclusion, the 1962 UK 2 shillings chain portrait coin may not be a guaranteed fortune in circulated condition, but it carries undeniable historical charm and steady collector interest. While everyday examples typically sell for modest sums, the excitement around rare variations and pristine pieces fuels ongoing enthusiasm in the market. Even a dirty specimen connects you directly to Britain in the early 1960s, to the reign of Queen Elizabeth II, and to a monetary system that shaped generations. Whether valued at a few dollars or ambitiously listed in the thousands, this coin remains a proud symbol of British heritage and a meaningful addition to any collection. At number 4, the UK 2 shillings coin from 1966, often known as the Florin, featuring the elegant chain portrait of Her Majesty Elizabeth II. If you have one of these coins tucked away in a drawer, coin jar, or inherited collection, especially in fine condition, you may be holding a small but powerful slice of British heritage that continues to capture the attention of collectors around the world. The 1966 2 shillings coin was struck during the pre-decimal era of the United Kingdom, just a few years before the country transitioned to decimal currency in 1971. This coin was issued under the authority of the Royal Mint and formed part of everyday British life at a time when 2 shillings represented a meaningful sum of money. The chain portrait of the young Queen, designed by Arnold McKinn, displays a graceful and dignified profile, surrounded by a delicate beaded border. On the reverse, the crowned rose design symbolizes England, reflecting national pride and continuity. In 1966, Britain was undergoing social and cultural change. The country was in the midst of the swinging 60s, yet its coinage still carried centuries of tradition. The florin itself has a long history, first introduced in the 19th century as part of an effort to decimalize British currency long before decimalisation actually arrived. By 1966, it had become a trusted and familiar denomination, widely used in shops, markets, and everyday transactions across the nation. The coin weighs approximately 11.31 grams and is composed of copper-nickel, a durable alloy that replaced silver in circulating coinage after 1947. It has a diameter of 28.5 millimeters, giving it a substantial feel in the hand. In fine condition, the details of the Queen's portrait remain clearly visible, though there may be light wear on the high points such as the hair and the floral elements on the reverse. The rims are usually intact, and the lettering remains legible, which is essential for collectors assessing value. What makes the 1966 2 shillings coin particularly interesting is its position in history. It was one of the final issues before decimalisation reshaped British currency. Although millions were minted, high-quality preserved examples are increasingly sought after as collectors aim to complete pre-decimal sets. The demand has steadily grown, especially among enthusiasts who specialize in coins of Elizabeth II and those focusing on the final years of traditional British denominations. In today's collector's market, a standard 1966 florin in fine condition might typically sell for modest sums, often between $3 and $10 depending on eye appeal. However, exceptional examples with sharp details, strong luster, and minimal marks can command significantly higher prices. Some sellers advertise premium pieces for hundreds of dollars, and in rare cases, specially preserved or error examples are promoted online for eye-catching amounts such as $1,200, $2,500, or even $5,000. While such figures often reflect ambitious asking prices rather than confirmed sales, they demonstrate the strong marketing appeal and growing enthusiasm surrounding vintage British coinage. Collectors are especially drawn to coins that show minimal surface damage, original mint sheen, and crisp edges. Even a coin described as fine can hold strong appeal if it has attractive toning and no harsh cleaning. The market's positive energy is fueled by nostalgia, historical importance, and the enduring global recognition of British currency. Coins from the 1960s are now approaching 60 years old, and their survival in respectable condition is becoming less common as time passes. If you are considering collecting or selling a 1966 2 shillings coin, careful handling is crucial. Always hold a coin by its edges, avoid cleaning it, and store it in a protective holder to preserve its condition. Authentication and grading by a reputable expert can also enhance buyer confidence and potentially increase the value. Researching completed sales rather than just advertised prices will give a clearer understanding of realistic market levels. There is something truly compelling about owning a coin that once circulated in the pockets of ordinary Britons during a transformative decade in British history. The 1966 2 shillings coin is not merely a piece of metal. It represents continuity, tradition, and the enduring image of a monarch whose reign shaped an era. With steady collector demand and the powerful draw of pre-decimal nostalgia, this coin continues to attract attention in both the United Kingdom and international markets. If you have one of these coins in fine condition, it is certainly worth taking a closer look. While not every example will bring thousands, the right combination of condition, presentation, and timing can make a significant difference. The key is knowledge, patience, and appreciation for the story each coin carries. In the world of rare coins, history and condition come together to create lasting value, and the 1966 UK 2 shillings florin stands proudly as a shining example of Britain's rich numismatic heritage. At last, the 1956 UK 2 shillings coin, often affectionately known as the florin, featuring the iconic chain portrait of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. If you've ever checked through old drawers, inherited a small collection, or discovered a handful of pre-decimal coins tucked away in a tin, you may well have come across this handsome silver-colored piece. But could a well-circulated 1956 example actually be worth far more than its face value? Stay with me, because this coin carries far more story and potential than many people realize. The 1956 2 shillings was struck during the early years of Elizabeth II's reign, a period when Britain was redefining itself in the post-war era. The young Queen's portrait, often referred to by collectors as the chain portrait, because of the delicate laurel wreath and necklace detail, symbolized continuity and stability for a nation moving into a modern age. At this time, Britain was still operating under the old pre-decimal system, where 2 shillings equaled 1/10 of a pound. The florin itself had a long history, first introduced in the 19th century as part of early decimalisation efforts, making it a coin deeply tied to Britain's monetary evolution. By 1956, the coin was being minted in cupronickel rather than silver, following the metal changes introduced after 1947. This means the 1956 issue does not contain precious silver, yet it remains highly collectible due to its historical placement and its elegant design. The reverse design displays a crowned rose flanked by thistles and shamrocks, representing England, Scotland, and Ireland, reinforcing the unity of the United Kingdom. For many collectors, this symbolism alone adds an emotional and cultural layer that goes beyond simple metal value. In terms of physical characteristics, the 1956 2 shillings coin has a weight of approximately 11.31 grams and a diameter of 28.5 millimeters. It feels substantial in the hand, with a reeded edge that gives it a crisp, official appearance. Even in circulating condition, where light scratches, small rim nicks and gentle wear to the Queen's hair details may be visible, the coin retains an undeniable charm. Circulating condition coins are those that have been used in everyday transactions, and while they may not have the sharp brilliance of uncirculated examples, they often tell a story through their wear. Now let's talk about rarity and demand. Official mintage figures for the 1956 Florin were not particularly low compared to some other dates, yet demand remained steady because collectors seek complete date runs of pre-decimal coinage. What truly drives excitement is condition. A standard circulating example might be valued modestly in the collector market, often ranging between $2 to $8 depending on eye appeal. However, there are stories within the hobby of exceptional specimens, especially those mistakenly struck with minor mint errors or preserved in near mint state despite circulation, commanding far higher prices. In today's rare coin market, dramatic listings sometimes advertise the 1956 2 shillings for eye-catching figures in the thousands of dollars. You may see speculative listings claiming values of $2,500, $5,000, or even $10,000, written numerically as $2,500, $5,000, or $10,000. These inflated figures often relate to extraordinary mint state pieces, rare proof strikes, or coins with unusual errors. While such prices are not typical for standard circulated examples, they demonstrate the powerful demand and enthusiasm that surround vintage British coinage. The key message here is that condition, authenticity, and unique features can dramatically influence value. Collectors today are increasingly turning their attention back to mid-20th century British coins, particularly those featuring the early portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. There is a growing sense of nostalgia and historical appreciation, especially following major milestones in her reign. As a result, even well-circulated coins are being rediscovered and appreciated anew. The 1956 2 shillings fits perfectly into this renewed wave of interest. If you happen to own one of these coins, it is important to examine it carefully. Look at the sharpness of the portrait details, the clarity of the lettering, and the definition in the floral emblems on the reverse. Even in circulating condition, strong detail can enhance desirability. Avoid harsh cleaning, as this can reduce collector value. Instead, store the coin in a dry, protective holder and consider consulting a reputable coin dealer if you believe your example is above average. Ultimately, the 1956 UK 2 shillings coin represents more than just old currency. It is a snapshot of Britain in the 1950s, a tangible connection to everyday life during a transformative era. Whether your coin is worth a few dollars or, in exceptional circumstances, thousands of dollars such as $3,000 or $7,500, its true value lies in its heritage and its place in the broader story of British coinage. So before you overlook that modest-looking florin in circulating condition, take a closer look. You may not only be holding a piece of monetary history, but also a coin that continues to attract collectors around the world. In a market where interest in classic British coins remains strong, the 1956 2 shillings stands proudly as a sought-after reminder of a remarkable reign and a defining chapter in the United Kingdom's past. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing world numismatic finds and rare UK coin discoveries.